Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Allahu Akbar, dear friends. God is most glorious. Welcome to the Sunday morning devotional program sponsored by the Spiritual Assemblies of the Baha'is of South DeKalb County and Sandy Springs, Georgia. So wonderful to have all of you with us today. You know, across the globe, the teachings of the Baha'i faith brought to us more than 150 years ago by His Holiness Baha'u'llah, its founder, and whose name in Arabic means the glory of God. His teachings have inspired and continue to inspire individuals and communities as they strive to improve their own lives and contribute to the advancement of civilization. Baha'i beliefs address such essential themes as the oneness of God and religion, the oneness of humanity and freedom from all forms of prejudice, the inherent nobility of the human being, the progressive revelation of religious truth, a gradual unfolding of God's purpose with the appearance of each divine teacher, the development of spiritual qualities, which allows us to reflect the image God made us in, the integration of worship and service with work performed in the spirit of service, actually being accounted as worship in the eyes of God, the fundamental equality of the sexes more widely evidenced in a setting of equal opportunity, the harmony between religion and science as an established fact, the centrality of justice in all human endeavor, the importance of education, particularly for children, and the dynamics of the relationships that strive to bind together individuals, communities, and institutions as humanity advances towards its collective maturity. We've been having some amazing programs every week, and we plan to continue that tradition. Pleased to have you join us. Again, welcome. Now, today's devotional program is going to be in honor of Mr. Taraz Manavi, who passed away suddenly. I believe it was yesterday. There will be readings and remembrances from those who wish to honor him. Please silence your electronic devices and mute yourselves if you are not speaking. Thank you. We will begin with a musical prayer for the departed, shared by Faith Holmes.
How many people can read from their own prayer books or whatnot?
Yeah, when we get to that. Thank you.
My God, O thou forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of afflictions, verily I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garment and have ascended to the spiritual world. May our love guide you home. May our prayers carry you home. Oh my Lord, purify them from trespasses, dispel their sorrows and change their darkness into light. Cause them to enter the garden happiness and delight. Cleanse them with the most pure water and grant them to behold thy might. Cleanse them with the most pure water and grant them to behold thy splendor on the loftiest mount. May our love guide you home. May our prayers carry you home. May God open the door. May He welcome you home. Ooh, ooh,
That was beautiful. Thank you, Faith. Friends, we will open it up right now to anyone wishing to share any prayers or memories about Taraz at this time. You may read from your own prayer books or something from memory. That is up to you. What we ask is that you raise your hand either at the bottom of the participants list, if you can see that. There should be, depending on the version of Zoom that you have, there should be an icon to raise your hand so that we have the requests in order as they are requested. And or at the on the ribbon at the bottom of your Zoom screen where it says reactions, if you click that, there's an icon that says raise hand. Raise your hand that way, but it's helpful to raise your hands in order for us to keep order and not everyone try to speak at once. So anyone wishing to say a prayer, have remembrance of Taraz, please feel free to do so now. I don't see, oh, Matthew. Matthew?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Here's a prayer for the departed. Glory be to thee, O Lord my God. Abase not him whom thou hast exalted through the power of thine everlasting sovereignty, and remove not far from thee him whom thou hast caused to enter the tabernacle of thine eternity. Wilt thou cast away, O my God, him whom thou hast overshadowed with thy lordship? And wilt thou turn away from thee, O my desire, him to whom thou hast been a refuge? Canst thou degrade him whom thou hast uplifted, or forget him whom thou didst enable to remember thee? Glorified, immensely glorified art thou. Thou art he who from everlasting hath been the king of the entire creation, and its prime mover. And thou wilt to everlasting remain the Lord of all created things, and their ordainer. Glorified art thou, O my God. If thou ceasest to be merciful unto thy servants, who then will show mercy unto them? And if thou refusest to succor thy loved ones, who is there that can succor them? Glorified, immeasurably glorified art thou. Thou art adored in thy truth, and thee do we all verily worship. And thou art manifest in thy justice, and to thee do we all verily bear witness. Thou art in truth the beloved in thy grace. No God is there but thee, the help in peril, the self-subsisting. Baha'u'llah.
Thank you, Matthew. Anyone else? Did you raise your hand again, Matthew, or is that Barbara?
That's me.
No, I meant Barbara Taylor.
Oh, I'm sorry. But mine was raised.
Okay, please.
This is also a prayer for the departure. Oh my God, O thou forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of afflictions. Verily, I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garment and have ascended to the spiritual world. O my Lord, purify them from trespasses, dispel their sorrows, and change their darkness into light. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness, cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant them to behold thy splendors on the loftiest mount. Abdul Baha.
Thank you, Barbara. Anyone else? Is that Barbara Taylor?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Mhm.
From the sweet scented streams of thine eternity, give me to drink, O my God. And of the fruits of the tree of thy being, enable me to taste, O my hope. From the crystal springs of thy love, suffer me to quaff, O my glory. And beneath the shadow of thine everlasting providence, let me abide, O my light. Within the meadows of thy nearness, before thy presence, make me able to roam, O my beloved. And at the right hand of the throne of thy mercy, seat me, O my desire. From the fragrant breezes of thy joy, let a breath pass over me, O my goal. And into the heights of the paradise of thy reality, let me gain admission, O my adored one. To the melodies of the dove of thy oneness, suffer me to hearken, O resplendent one. And through the spirit of thy power and thy might, quicken me, O my provider. In the spirit of thy love, keep me steadfast, O my succorer. And in the path of thy good pleasure, set firm my steps, O my maker. Within the garden of thine immortality, before thy countenance, let me abide forever, O thou who art merciful unto me. And upon the seat of thy glory stablish me, O thou who art my possessor. To the heaven of thy loving kindness lift me up, O my quickener, and unto the day star of thy guidance lead me, O thou my attractor. Before the revelations of thine invisible spirit, summon me to be present, O thou who art my origin and my highest wish. And unto the essence of the fragrance of thy beauty, which thou wilt manifest, cause me to return, O thou who art my God. Potent art thou to do what pleaseth thee. Thou art verily the most exalted, the all-glorious, the all-highest. Baha'u'llah.
Thank you, Barbara. Anyone else wishing to offer prayers or memories? Barbara, is your hand still up just because? Barbara Hennix.
Just because I don't know how to take it down.
Okay. I would, but I'm not a co-host. There. Well, we're going to move forward with some music from Don Erdman, also in honor of Taraz. I believe is your first piece, Amazing Grace? Don?
Yes, play Amazing Grace for Taraz.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Do you have a second piece that you were going to play as well?
I can, yes, I do. I'll play that on soprano. God is sufficient unto me is what I'll play.
Thank you, Don. That was beautiful. Both pieces. Thank you so much. Well, friends, that concludes the devotional portion of our program today. And we will keep Taraz and his family in our prayers. You know, every week we're blessed to have a guest presenter to come and share with us their thoughts on a particular topic. This week we are honored to have Faith Holmes joining us, and she's going to talk about the reality of man is his thoughts. So I didn't receive a bio from you, Faith, so would you like to share a few things about yourself for the community so that they know who you are? Unmute.
Hello, Hermione. Thank you so much for having me. Gosh, I have been living in Chicago, LA, and DC for the past 30 years, and have just returned back home to Jupiter, Florida, where I grew up. I've been doing work in race relations for 30 years. I've also been a business owner and entrepreneur in the Washington, DC area, where I opened a cafe and I was in the food service business, and also used that entity to bring people together, which is my greatest desire in this world. And in the last few years, I have started really studying meditation and mindfulness. And so that's a new path that is opening up for me. And I'm going to share a bit about that path today. As you mentioned in the introduction about the actuality of the harmony of science and religion, I'm going to go into that quite a bit this morning.
Wonderful. Well, then, without further ado, go into it now.
Wonderful.
Welcome, Faith Holmes.
Thank you, Hermione. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in this morning. I was going to ask all of you to do a really quick Survey Monkey, but because this is live on YouTube, I don't think that that's going to be appropriate to do, but I would like for you to think about a couple of questions. And the question that I want you to think about and maybe answer for yourself is, do you believe you create your reality? Do you actually believe that? Do you monitor your thoughts? You know, do you try to take something negative and turn it into something positive? Do you spend time creating the reality you truly want to live? So these are the questions that I want you to kind of have as a starting point, as a basis in the back of your mind. Have you ever been face down on the mat? I mean, couldn't give up, ref, I can't take another day. That was where I was about 3 years ago. I wasn't sure that I was going to survive what was coming, what was happening in my world. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to survive it. And I was face down on the mat. And a number of things happened to bring me to that point. Sadly, I mentioned that I was an entrepreneur. Sadly, my business bankrupted me, and I had nothing but debt surrounding me. And this concept of the reality of man as his thought is a quote from Abdu'l-Baha, which was the son of the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. And all my life, I looked at that quote, the reality of man as his thought, and I thought that that was spiritual and esoteric and somewhere out there in the woo-woo mystical world. But it was through this traumatic thing that happened in my world that made me realize that this is really, truly right centered within me. Growing up in the Baha'i community, I read this quote when I was an early teenager, and I thought that yeah, that makes sense, but I didn't really understand it on an applicable level for my life. So when you're going through tests, what is the reason that we go through tests? And Abdu'l-Baha shares this quote: "The mind and spirit of man advance when he is tried by suffering. The more the ground is plowed, the better the seed will grow, the better the harvest will be. Just as the plow furrows the earth deeply, purifying it of weeds and thistles, so suffering and tribulation free man from the petty affairs of this worldly life, until he arrives at a state of complete detachment. His attitude in this world will be that of divine happiness. Man is, so to speak, unripe. The heat of the fire of suffering will mature him. Look back to the times past, and you will find that the greatest of men have suffered most." So when you think about this quote, it is the tests that bring us to our better selves. And I'm hoping that everyone in the audience today can think back to a time where they too might have been going through a dark night of the soul or suffering through great tests, but coming out on the other side of it, how they were better because of it. Scientific research really goes into a lot these days about the power of our thoughts. So I want to kind of set the stage for a few of the things that we're going to be talking about today. Did you know that your internal voice is 10 times more powerful than what you hear others say? Science today shows that we think anywhere from 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And how many of those thoughts are positive? Many people say that almost 80% of the thoughts that we think actually are not positive. Some are neutral and many are negative. It has also been proven that when you say it out loud and you don't just think it, it's 10 times more powerful than when you think it. So when someone asks you, "How was your day today?" and you talk about how terrible it was, it gives 10 times more energy to that. So we want to think about that. According to Christine Norad of the Harvard Business Review, when it's a negative thought, it could be influenced up to 10 times more. So in that original example, when I talked about when we say a thought out loud, when I tell you I had a wonderful day, it's 10 times more powerful, positive or negative. But when the thought is negative, it's up to 7 times more powerful. Studies have also shown that if you start your day off with the news, you are 27% more likely to say that you had a bad day at the end of your day. So many people wake up and turn the news on. And I think that this is something that is so key. What do we do to start our days? Do we start our days off with creating our reality with prayer and meditation? Or do we start it out with the troubles of the world? The average person becomes average because of average behavior, not because of aptitude. If you really want to change yourself, you have to commit to a practice. So that's really the basis that we're really going to be going through today. So if we find our way to start our days off with prayer and meditation, as I mentioned, we learn to live in the present now instead of the familiar past or the predictable future. You know, so many of us try to create a new reality from an old state of being. And to really create a new future, we have to give it up to God. We have to give it up to that unknowable source. We have to allow spiritual reality to guide us in everything that we do. The law of substitution says that if we think about what we have to do next, our mind will move there. So again, how many times are we thinking about what we have to do next, but we're not creating the best future that we can? If my mind moves there, my behaviors will follow. There is a story that I heard about 3 years ago, 2 years ago, actually, from Trevor Moed, who is a mindfulness expert. And I think this story, really clearly puts into practice what we need to hear about to understand how we create our reality. I will apologize ahead of time. There's a little bit of bad language, just one bad word, but I'm sure we can all handle it. But the story really helps highlight exactly what it is that we're talking about as far as the reality of man creating his thoughts. So I'm going to share this video. It's short.
For 5 minutes, but this, I was like, no way. And I went and told everyone the rest of the week.
Yeah.
And then I called you back yesterday. I'm like, bro, was that story real? Because I've been
Yeah.
telling it all week.
Right.
And I think the reason why it's so good to tell is it's the epitome, in a very understandable, entertaining way, why mindset is so important.
Right.
Give it to us.
Well, this focuses on this idea of something called the Pygmalion effect. And so the Pygmalion effect is very real, right? So as it was told to me by my dad, and there's a speaker series that anybody on this podcast could get involved with called Toastmasters. And Toastmasters is an international group that there's a Toastmasters LA, there's a Toastmasters Arizona, where you can, sign up and be a part of local groups and you work on speaking. Not improv, but kind of like that. And it's a professional speaking group. Then they have national events. Well, my dad, had a chance to hear one of the top magazine entrepreneurs tell a story at an international Toastmasters event. And he would share the story with me as a really kind of two pivotal moments that really jump out at me in my life to understand the power of our own behavior.
Yeah.
So this guy was a high school student who was a fuck up, right? And he was struggling and he was about to get kicked out of high school. So if you could do it wrong, he was doing it.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, there was a test, and a lot of people would know it, called the SAT. And the SAT, it's been modified since, but back then it had two parts, math and verbal, 800 points. He promised his mom he would take the test. Okay, so he takes the test. He expects nothing, but he takes it for his mom. And he takes it in May, gets a score back in June, and to the surprise of everybody, he gets a 1480 out of 1600. So his mother, as I shared with you, doing what any mother would do, she said, did you cheat? Right? Because she knows her son and he must have cheated because the score isn't in alignment with who he was.
Yeah.
Or in psychological terms, it would be called cognitive dissonance, right? Where you see an outcome that's different than who you think you are.
Yeah.
He said he tried to cheat, right? But the spacing of the chairs was too much. The numbers were too small on the number 2 pencil that he literally took the test. She said, you mean to tell me you're that smart? He said, all I can tell you is I took the test. So he's fucked up, but he also recognizes like, oh, I might be smart.
Yeah.
So now he's weaponized in a different way. So because he thinks he's smart, he says, because I'm smart, I'm going to go to class as a senior. He's still enrolled. Well, now he goes to class. He doesn't hang out with who he used to when he didn't go to class.
Yeah, the dumb kids, because now he's a smart kid.
Right?
Yeah.
And so teachers see him and said, you know what, maybe we missed the boat on him.
Yeah.
Right? So he graduates, goes to a community college, goes on to a 4-year, and then ultimately goes on to the Ivy League. And as the story is told, becomes one of the top most successful magazine entrepreneurs. So you hear like, okay, well, obviously he had the gifts. He just had never unlocked them. And this test just caught him on a good day and he got behind the real gifts he had. And he says, no, that's not the story. He said, the story starts 12 years later. I get a letter in the mail from Princeton, New Jersey. Don't think anything about it. And next day, his wife says, you're going to open it. He opens it. Well, it turns out the SAT board, which is true, which happens every year, reviews their test-taking procedures and policies. The year he took the test, he was one of 13 people, sent the wrong SAT score.
Yeah.
The actual score was a 740 out of 1,600. And as my dad would say, the whole crowd gasps, right? The whole crowd gasps. And he says, people want to say it's the 1480 that changed my life. When in true, acting like a 1480 is what changed my life. And what does a 1480 do? They go to class.
Yeah.
So
Damn it, that's good.
what it tells people is that your behavior, not your aptitude, defines you.
Yeah.
And what we think our aptitude is shapes our behavior. Yeah. So what is unique about Russell Wilson is that
So that story to me is the epitome of why it is that we have to work to create our reality. So I'm going to circle back around to this time in my life where everything was falling apart. I owned a cafe called the Love and Faith Community Cafe in Washington, D.C. And in 2 weeks' time, my ice cream pasteurizer broke, which was my most expensive piece of equipment. Within a week, my ice maker broke. 3 days later, my espresso machine broke, which being a cafe, you really can't be a cafe without offering coffee. And the blowing, the thing that took me over the edge was my front door, which was these big glass doors, got stuck open, and a locksmith came and said that it would be $1,200 to shut it. And he wasn't sure that that would fix the problem. And I was just like, I give up. Okay, I get it. I went home that night. I just cried. I called a dear friend and mentor who had been helping guide me through this time, doing some spiritual work together. And she listened to me, and she was empathetic and beautiful and wonderful. And then said, gosh, Faith, I'm so sorry. I've got nothing for you. Like, what do you mean you have nothing for me? Like, I'm almost suicidal here. And I don't know. I mean, I mentioned she's spiritually connected. I guess she was, guided to say that to me that day. She's never said that to me since. She had never said it to me before. But it caused me to turn to prayer and meditation in a way that I have never in my life done. And I cried myself to sleep that night. And the next morning I woke up just feeling like I'd been run over by a truck, and prayed and meditated again. And there was an exercise that said to write for a minimum of 20 minutes. And that at every given moment, we are somewhere on a 22-point scale, 1 being the highest, being joy, love, and ecstasy, 22 being fear and hopelessness, and everything in between. And I started writing, and I realized something that day. You were to make I statements starting at the lowest level you're on, and you write on that level until you can't write anymore, and then you move up to 21 and then to 20. And I couldn't get to number 1, but I was able to get to 8, which was optimism. And I realized something that day. I can only control 2 things in my life. I can control my actions, and I can control my reactions. But other than that, I can't control anything. I can't control how many people come into my cafe. I can't control what happens when I'm not there with my staff. I can't control what my staff do when I'm not there. Like, there's just all of these things that I can influence, but I cannot control. So how do I move in the world so that I'm in alignment and integrity within myself? So around the same time, a dear sister friend of mine, Robin, sent me a talk from Dr. Joe Dispenza. And Dr. Joe Dispenza is a leading expert on neuroscience. And he had been hit by a car while he was in a triathlon, a truck, a Ford Bronco going 55 miles an hour, and he broke his spine in 6 places. And the doctors, he consulted all the best doctors in Southern California, and they all said he needed a herring rod bone surgery. He was a chiropractor himself. He knew that that wasn't going to be great for him. And he'd already been receiving like inclinations that like our body is a pharmacy in and of itself. We know today that stress is something that creates disease in our body. So if stress creates disease in our body, can our body also heal itself? And he was going through a dark night of the soul, just, in a different way than I was. And he decided that he wasn't going to do the surgery and that he was going to recreate his spine in his mind. And every day he would start off his day and he would meditate for 4 hours a day. And he would start, because he was a chiropractor, he knew the skeletal structure perfectly. And he would go in and he'd start recreating and recreating and recreating, and he'd get an hour in, and then he'd think, what am I going to, a thought of fear would come, and he'd think, am I going to have to sell my home? Am I going to lose my practice? And he'd have to start all over. And about week 6, something magical happened, and he was able to rebuild his spine from front to back without having a single negative thought come into his mind. And he was able to accomplish it in an hour. And he started to heal. By week 9, he was walking. By week 12, he was training again. Like the power that we have within us to create our reality. When Abdu'l-Baha says the reality of man is his thought, it's not spiritual and esoteric and somewhere outside of yourself. It's actually within you. So I was like, oh my gosh, what am I creating? I am going through all this trauma in my life. What is it that I'm creating for myself because of all of my negative thinking? So I was able to finally get rid of my business, and I was starting to heal. And the year before, I had been attracted to one of his books called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And believe me, I needed to break the habit of being myself. So I had been reading the book, and actually I'd been audio listening to it, but I'd saved clips that I was like, oh, that's important to know. And I had gone from Washington, D.C. to New York to visit my family in Mount Vernon. The same woman, Robin, who had sent me this Dr. Joe talk. And I get on the bus, and mega buses have a way to have internet. So I brought my computer to do some work, and I get on and the internet is down. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do for 4.5 hours? And reading on a bus, going around it you can be hard, and you can get kind of motion sickness. And I remembered these audio clips that I had saved from Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. So I started to listen to them. And as I'm listening to them, he gives a formula of how it is that you change your reality. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint to share with you. Actually, forgive me, I want to share one additional quick video that highlights what it is that I'm talking about right now, about the power we have to change our thoughts.
How many people in this audience actually believe in the idea that the way you think has some effect on your life? So how many people here actually woke up this morning and consciously created a future? The biggest reason why people don't do it is because you don't really believe it's true. You see, if you knew on a gut level that it was absolutely true, Would you ever miss a day? Come on. And would you ever let any thought slip by your awareness that you didn't want to experience? So if you believe this, then does your environment control your thinking, or does your thinking control your environment? So if you wake up in the morning and you get out of bed on the same exact side as you did the day before, you shut the alarm clock off with the same finger, you slip into your favorite slippers, you shuffle into the bathroom and you use the toilet like you always do, then you get into the shower and you wash yourself in the same routine way, then you groom yourself to look like everybody expects you to look, then you go downstairs and you drink coffee out of your favorite mug, then you drive to work the same way as you did the day before, you see the same people that push the same emotional buttons, you do the exact thing that you know how to do and you memorize and can do so well that you're an expert at, then you hurry up and rush home so you can hurry up and check your emails, so you could hurry up and go to bed, so you can hurry up and do it all over again. Now, here's my question. Did your brain change at all that day? We could say that you were thinking the same thoughts, performing the same actions, that create the same experiences, that produce the same emotions, but secretly expecting something to change in your life. As you see the same people and go to the same places and do the same things at the same time, it's the external environment that's turning on different circuits in your brain, causing you to think equal to everything that you know. And as long as you think equal to everything that's familiar or known to you, what do you keep creating more of? Same life. Now, the quantum law is still applying to you. You're just thinking equal to everything that you know, and you keep creating more of the same. To change, to truly change, is to think greater than your environment. And every great person in history knew this, whether it was William Wallace or Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King or Queen Elizabeth I or Joan of Arc. They all had a vision. They all had an idea. Couldn't see it, couldn't smell it, couldn't taste it, couldn't feel it, but it was alive in their mind. It was so alive in their mind that they began to live as if that reality was actually happening now. So can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that your brain is literally changed to look like the event has already happened? Neuroscience says it's absolutely possible. 95% of who you are by the time you're 35 years old is a set of memorized behaviors, set of emotional reactions, beliefs, perceptions, attitudes that run just like a computer program. So 5% of your conscious mind begins to work against 95% of what you've memorized. So the person wants to think positively, but they're feeling negatively. They want to create their dream board, and put up their future life, but they feel unworthy. That's mind and body in opposition. We have to recondition the body to a new mind. To change your mind, then, is to make the brain work in new sequences and new patterns and new combinations, to begin to make the brain work differently. And the one ingredient that allows us to do that is knowledge or information. Because every time you learn something new, you make a new connection in your brain. That's what learning is. Learning is forging new connections. Remembering is maintaining or sustaining those connections. Write down the choices you have to stop making. Look at the things you have to stop doing. Do you complain? Do you make excuses? Do you blame other people? What do you do? List those things and be really honest with yourself. What experiences do you have to stay away from certain people at certain times? Stay away from them so that you are not in the environment that triggers it.
So these things really highlight how it is that we create our reality in the world, right? So back to my story on the bus, I am listening to these clips that I had saved, and Dr. Joe Dispenza gives a formula. By the way, anyone who's interested in the videos that I show today, if you send If you send a note with your email in it, I'd be more than happy to forward them to you. So
Put your email in the chat.
sure, I'd be happy to do that.
That way they can get it from there.
Absolutely, great idea. Thank you, Hermione. So I'm on the bus and I'm listening to these clips on breaking the habit of being yourself. And he shows a way that he gives a strategy. Not exactly sure what just happened. It jumped to my other screen. I don't know. I've never seen that before. So he gives a formula for how it is that you change your life in breaking the habit of being yourself. And he says the number one thing that you do is set a clear intention. And then the second thing that he says to do is to match that intention with the elevated emotion of how you would feel if that intention had already come true. And when you do this, as you send that intention out into the world, you yourself become a magnet and attract to you that which you're putting out into the universe. And it hits me like a ton of bricks. Something that I'd read again when I was in my teenage years, 13 or 14 years old, from Shoghi Effendi. And he was talking about the 5 steps to prayer. And in the 5 steps of prayer, he says that in step 1, you have to pray and meditate about it. And when you pray and meditate about it, I tested all of this before I'm not gonna go to the larger screen just because of the technical difficulties that I had before. But step 1, he says, pray and meditate about it. Use the prayers of the manifestations as they have the greatest power. Then remain in the silence of contemplation for a few minutes. How many of you, when you're looking to solve a problem in your life, pray about it, but how many of you sit in silence and wait until an answer comes to you? I know for me, until this time in my life, I didn't do this very often. Step 2, he says, arrive at a decision and hold this. This decision is usually born during the contemplation. It may seem almost impossible of accomplishment, but if it seems to be an answer to a prayer or a way of solving the problem, then immediately take the next step. Step 3, have determination to carry the decision through. Many fail here. The decision budding into determination is blighted and instead becomes a wish or a vague longing. When determination is born, immediately take the next step. How many times have you been inspired by something and you're like, oh, I'm gonna do this. And you get ready and then a day or 2 passes and you lose momentum. This is, I think, a really good, I think every single one of us can talk about times in our lives where this has absolutely happened. Here's where the magic starts. The 4th step. Have faith and confidence that the power will flow through you, the right way will appear, the door will open, the right thought, the right message, the right principle, or the right book will be given to you. Have confidence in the right thing will come to your need. Then, as you arise from prayer, take at once the next step. Act as though it had already been achieved. Well, Shoghi Effendi said, act as though it has already been answered. Then act with tireless, ceaseless energy. And as you act, you yourself will become a magnet which will attract more power to your being until you become an unobstructed channel for the divine power to flow through you. He goes on to say, many Pray, but do not remain for the last half of the first step. Some who meditate arrive at a decision but fail to hold it. Few others have the determination to carry the decision through. Still fewer have the confidence that the right thing will come to their need. But how many remember to act as though it had already been answered? How true are these words? Greater than the prayer is the spirit in which it is uttered, and greater than the way it is uttered is the spirit in which it is carried out. I read this quote when I was 13, 14 years old. And when Shoghi Effendi said, act as though it had already been achieved, all my life I've been like, I want to do that, but I don't know how. And here, Dr. Joe, through neuroscience, gives a formula of how to do it. And it was the first time in my life where everything just started coming together to really help me understand how it is that we create our reality. So there's a lot of things in the Baha'i writings that talk about meditation. So this is, the science and the harmony of science from religion, how it is that we come together in this world. So I want to share a little bit more information about what the Baha'i writings say about meditation, because I think it's something that we don't really do very often. And I think it's been very instrumental in the transformation of my own life. Abdu'l-Baha says, reflect upon the inner realities of the universe, the secret wisdoms involved, the enigmas, the interrelationships, the rules that govern all. For every part of the universe is connected with every other part by ties that are very powerful and admit of no imbalance or any slackening whatsoever. In this quote, I think about talking about a dark night of the soul and how hard it is that we go through these challenging times, where I started out this talk talking about the tests and difficulties that we go through. But often it's what creates us to be the people that we are to become, to give the services to the world that we have been created to give. So how is it that we transform our thoughts? I grew up in a Baha'i family. My mother learned about the Baha'i faith when she was pregnant with me. And I grew up with all of these lofty ideals, but I didn't understand how practically to put it into force. So I remember hearing as a child, when a man has 10, Abdu'l-Baha would say, when a man has 10 qualities and 9 of them are bad, focus on the one that is good. And again, it's like, how do you really do that? Abdu'l-Baha talks about when a thought of war comes, replace it by a greater thought of peace. So here, Abdu'l-Baha says, I charge you all that each one of you concentrate all the thoughts of your heart on love and unity. When a thought of war comes, oppose it by a stronger thought of peace. A thought of hatred must be destroyed by a more powerful thought of love. Thoughts of war bring destruction to all harmony, well-being, and restfulness. Thoughts of war bring destruction to all harmony, well-being, restfulness, and content. Thoughts of love are constructive of brotherhood, peace, friendship, and happiness. Nothing is impossible to the divine benevolence of God. If you desire friendship with all your heart, with every race on earth, your thoughts, spiritual and positive, will spread. It will become the desire of others, growing stronger and stronger until it reaches the minds of all men. Do not despair, work steadily. Sincerity of love will conquer hate. How many seemingly impossible events are coming to pass in these days? Set your faces towards the light of the world. Show love to all. Love is the breath of the Holy Spirit and the heart of man. Take courage. God never forsakes his children who strive and work and pray. Let your hearts be filled with the strenuous desire that tranquility and harmony may encircle all this warring world. So will success crown your efforts. And with the universal brotherhood will come the kingdom of God and peace and goodwill. You know, a few months ago, I was brushing my teeth and I was judging a family member. Someone had made a racist comment on social media. And for 3 days, I'd been judging this person. Like, I cannot believe that they made this comment. I can't believe how insensitive it is. I can't, like I was just ruminating on it over and over and over again. And I realized what Abdu'l-Baha said, and I realized how wrong I was for judging continuously. And I thought, okay, let me try and replace that thought with love. How do I do that? Like when I talked about, Abdu'l-Baha saying, when a man has 10 qualities and 9 of them are bad, focus on the one that is good. And I was like, okay, what is the one good quality I can find in this person? And I'm like, they create beauty everywhere they go. Oh, and they're so generous. And they really love their family. And I was able to really get quite a few things, where I really could appreciate this person. And I thought, oh, that's what we have to do in every single instance. We have to take those dark thoughts that we have and turn them into light. And only we can do that in and of ourselves. So part of how we come to creation is through meditation. And again, when we talk about meditation, we don't often really talk about how it is that we meditate or what is it that meditation brings us. So here's some things that Abdu'l-Baha has taught us regarding meditation. He says some thoughts may be of little or no use. They are like waves moving in the sea without result. But if the faculty of meditation is bathed in the inner light and characterized with divine attributes, the results will be confirmed. And later, the Universal House of Justice says, in his talks, Abdu'l-Baha describes prayer as conversation with God. And concerning meditation, he says that while you meditate, you are speaking with your own spirit. In that state of mind, you put certain questions to your spirit and the spirit answers. The light breaks forth and the reality is revealed. Baha'u'llah has written, meditate profoundly, that the secret of things unseen may be revealed unto you, that you may inhale the sweetness of a spiritual and imperishable fragrance, and that you may acknowledge the truth, so that light may be distinguished from darkness, truth from falsehood, right from wrong, guidance from error, happiness from misery, and roses from thorns. We have such power within our brains to create our reality. It's so exciting, the time which we're living in, because science is really proving so much of the spiritual things that Baha'u'llah talked about, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. And so they've done all these they've done all of these experiments. And they've had people practice scales on a piano. And they've had them practice for an hour a day for 5 days in a row. And they've measured what happens through brain scans before they start practicing and 5 days later. And they found that through the brain scans, we can see the connections that have happened. So I want to share a little video with you to share that experience and how that works from a scientific model. My controls are blocking me being able to share. Sorry about that. I am really having some technical difficulties here.
So you say, what is compassion? And you go, oh, I read the book on compassion. That was pretty good. And you activate those networks of neurons. Oh, my Aunt Mary was really compassionate with me. I remember that. Oh, yeah, I saw the video with the Dalai Lama on compassion. Ooh, I had that experience where I felt compassionate. Boy, do I have a lot of compassion for myself. And as you select these different networks of neurons, it creates a level of mind. Once they fire in tandem, you get an internal representation, and that's called an intention, a clear picture in your mind. So you would have to agree then, the more knowledge and experience you store in your brain, the more you can build a greater intention or a greater future. Would you agree? So this is the most important slide of the day. It says nerve cells that no longer fire together no longer wire together. That's called the universal law. You don't use it, you lose it. I call this the science of changing your mind or throwing out the mental trash. Here we go. You're sitting now and you're going to create a new future, and you start thinking, okay, what would it be like to be happy, or what would it be like to be healthy? And you're going to fire this new thought, so you close your eyes, you eliminate the external environment, you put your body away, and you're going to get beyond time. So here's the new thought right here. This blue neuron called I am healthy or I am happy. So you sit down and you close your eyes and you start to fire this thought. And as you fire this new thought, you are activating a new level of mind. And as you begin to fire this thought, you got to seal the connection. But there's only one problem. You've been firing and wiring a lot of other thoughts. And as you're in the midst of creating your own joy and your own happiness or your own health, all of a sudden you hear these voices in your head. You're not happy. You'll never change. You're a slob. You're too old. It's never going to work. That's the chatter that's been going on. And so all these other circuits have been happening behind the scenes of your awareness because they're subconscious automatic programs. And now you become very conscious of them when you're in the midst of change. So while all of this chatter is going on in your head, you have this one element called your will. And your will is connected to your spirit. And if you keep firing that same thought over and over again and restraining those other thoughts, if you keep doing it over and over again by the law of repetition, sooner or later, what's going to happen? That's going to become the loudest voice in your head or the strongest signal in that neuron. The moment it becomes the strongest signal, I am healthy, becomes the loudest voice in your head, and now you're firing this circuit, and it has to be sealed. You with me? But if you're going to seal the circuit, the thought travels down in this direction called an action potential from this nerve to this nerve, but the glue that seals it travels in the opposite direction. So the glue has got to seal this circuit, but there's only a certain amount of glue going around. So as the brain seals this circuit, it steals the glue from the neighboring circuits. And all of a sudden, there goes the thought that you're too much like your mother, or the pain's never going to go away, or this is what the doctor told you, you have to live with it the rest of your life. And now what's the only signal traveling to your body? I am healthy. How many people understand?
So in looking at these videos, it's not just esoteric and something that sounds good in spiritual or religious text. This is something that's backed up by science. How is it that we create our own reality? You know, so many people, when you ask them, do you meditate? Usually the answer is no. And what are the two reasons that they say they don't meditate? First reason usually is they say they don't have enough time. And the second reason is they say they're not good at it or I don't know how. But the very first time you swung a golf puck or, a tennis racket, or you've done anything, the very first time, were you ever good at it? It takes practice. And the more you practice, the more you become an expert at it and the better you do. And it's something that, he said, Dr. Joe always says, we create our reality through meditation. So if you really truly believe that we create our own reality, would you ever miss a day? Like, would you ever miss a day of meditating if you really truly believed that? So going back to the story about the people who are practicing the scales, they're practicing the scales for an hour a day for 5 days. And just like we saw in that video with the synaptic brain scans, where you saw the connection and the hardwiring in the brain of new information, they were like, okay, we see that. So they did the exact same thing with people who they were asked, they never moved their fingers. They were told to practice the scales on a piano in their mind for an hour a day for 5 days. And the brain scans showed they had learned just as much as the people who had actually been practicing. Exactly the same. Another scientific study that had been done was they took a group of college students and had them pull a string for 4 weeks, kept pulling, kept pulling, kept pulling. And after 4 weeks, their strength had grown by 30%. They had another control group who, again, never touched a string, never moved their arm, but were told to do the same thing, rehearsal in their mind of pulling the string, and their strength grew by 22%. They never lifted a finger, but yet their strength grew by 22%. That's how powerful our thoughts are. That's how much we have to make sure that we mind what it is that we think about. That's how important it is that we go back to what Abdu'l-Baha talks about. When a thought of war comes, oppose it by a stronger thought of peace. When a thought of hatred comes, replace it by a greater thought of love. I know we're running out of time, so I want to allow time for questions. And I, again, would be happy to send these videos out to you all. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Hey, it's Richard. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So it's interesting, we spent part of our lives together growing up and have different paths. And after 30 some odd years, I've come to many of the similar conclusions that you have come to in this journey. I'm interested in quantum physics and neuroscience, and I call it weird science, but I've always been a spiritual person.
Right.
And at this moment in time, I have a son who's 19 who is having some difficulties with his mental capacities. So in all of the deep dives into Dispensa and the other, neuroscience, quantum physics that are overlapping now, the question is, does the mind, once those neurons, completely fuse and stop, and I'll use myself as an example, I've been trying to learn Italian and Spanish for a couple of years now, not really applying myself that hard to it, but I've read in certain literatures that the human baby has the potential to learn any one of the 3,000 languages and dialects. And as your mind matures and it develops neurologically, those pathways just close down. So I guess the question is, at my stage in life, or my son's stage in life as an adult, is it possible to unweld or to re-engage those neurons, or is it simply just they're going to be lost to the capacity of the human mind?
Great question. So it's absolutely never too late. It just takes more effort and energy. But the more we put, like, you know, I was talking to someone, a friend of mine the other day, and she was talking about how, although she doesn't always have this conversation with her son, she has this conversation over and over and over again in her mind. And I said, you know, I was talking to another friend of mine. I was like, you know, every time that those kinds of thoughts come, for me, I would say that's none of your business. Like, I just stop myself. That's none of my business. That's none of my business. And I think we have to turn off the thoughts that bring us down, and we need to replace them, like what Abdul Baha said. When a thought of war comes, oppose it by a greater thought of peace. Thought of hatred must be replaced by a greater thought of love. But it's never too late to turn those messaging off. You have to be willing to put in the work to change it. So it's not an overnight fix. There's no quick fix here. It is always something that takes work. And I think, you know, the creative word, some kind of spiritual practice is really important to dive into. Also, as you mentioned, Richard, like, up until the age, our brains aren't fully developed until we're about 25 years old. So there's even in your son's case, who's 19, he'll have an easier time incorporating some of this stuff into his life than you will. Not that you won't still be able to accomplish the same amount that he could. It's just going to take greater work and effort and dedication to making it purposeful at all times. I think if people use the raise your hand function down at the bottom on participants, that would be easiest, because I know a lot of people are that way. A lot of people are not on screen. So if anyone else would like to ask any questions. Yes, hi, Joy.
And I also have my hand raised. I look crazy right now, but so I'm not doing that to anybody. But actually, well, no, I do look crazy. So anyway, well, good morning, everyone. First of all, it's been wonderful. I enjoyed every single thing that you said, of course. But it's not a but, it's an and.
Yeah, please.
That is really a confirmation on a spiritual level for me. You know, Baha'u'llah says, obey me and I will make you like unto myself. I say be and it is, and thou shalt say be and it shall be. You know, and that whole idea that we are, he said, you know, render thyself a puny form when within thee the universe is folded, right? You know, so there is this reality about who we are and what we are. And there always, I wanted to say this because it's such a powerful moment, because we have a tendency to be dichotomous in our thinking. Either this is correct or that's correct, and it's all correct, right? And so part of what happened recently, well, my daughter was telling a story of her grandmother who's Christian. You know, mom just, you know, mom passed, and mom was a devout Christian. And in my opinion, the first time I've actually lived and walked with someone I consider to be a saint, someone who chooses to be decent in an indecent world. That was mom. Anyway, one day she took, but he of course would, you know, we would always go to church with her. And she would introduce us, and it was never an issue. And one time a pastor just kind of, you know, talked about we were going to hell, essentially. You know, you're not going to make it. You're not going to pass go. And mom didn't say anything about it. But in the car ride home, we were in Detroit, and mom asked people in the car, how can you get to this particular place? You know, Southfield. And one of the people said, you know, well, you could go down this street. And she asked another person in the car, she goes, we found 4 ways to get to Southfield. No way is there only one way to get to God. You know? So she said, and when she said that, that also speaks to this idea that Baha'u'llah said it's everywhere. You know, you can find it in a rock, hidden, it is here. All of these truths are here. And whatever avenue that you need and you can use to get there, they all lead to the same place. right?
Yes.
Our true self.
Yes.
That, you know, all the prophets have come so that man could attain into the knowledge of his own true self. And so these are methods and ways that I appreciate you sharing, that opens up, you know, because I remember one last thing, the Guardian was asked, and this was early on, about Baha'is who would write books about the Baha'i books. You know, think something about gleanings, write something about Kitabi Agdas. And the Baha'i started going, how dare you? You can't do that. That's inappropriate. And the Guardian wrote back and said, no, that's absolutely appropriate, because someone may actually be able to reach that knowledge, not through the actual book, but through someone else explaining their journey through that book. Yeah. So there's so many, you know, I just want to thank you for expressing what you have and sharing what you have. I love you dearly, and I'm going to stop now.
I love you, Joy. Thanks for being here. And thank you for adding those incredible quotes. The next person who has their hand raised is Cindy, who is my mother. So I'm so lucky I get Richard and Joy and my mother, my family.
I just want to, I think it's really important. It's this kind of response to Richard's question. The power of the sacred word has a creative power inside of us, truly the biggest power to change ourselves. We scientifically, all that you say is true, but we cannot, we have to, whether from any of the sacred text throughout human history, that is actually what changes and creates a new civilization. So I've had healing experiences happen inside of my being that's happened in an instant. So even though scientifically it may take longer, there's a power to the creative word, exposing yourself again and again, as Faith talked about, being exposed to these things at an early age. It created the seed, but she had to nurture it. She had to really focus on it when she was, you know, needed for survival. That's what brought her out of it. So I just wanted to add that. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Please, Faith. Question, but I did wanted to, first of all, this presentation is, I believe, life-changing. I can't speak for anyone else here, but it is for me, listening to the science combined with the spirit. And that's where I function best, when those things come together. Your comment about we usually try to create a new reality from an old state of being. That's just while you're talking, I'm busy processing how that's gonna have to change in the ways in which it can be changed. And then you share the breaking the habit of being yourself, which I've been really busy being myself at almost 70, that'll be this year. And the part about the spine broken in 6 places and being healed through the mind or mindset. I know these things can happen, but when you hear the actual examples of, you know, live entities for which it did happen, that's beyond powerful and moving. And so I've been snapping photos of your slides on my laptop. I have all of them, all the ones I'm going to be needing in order to make this change. But I just wanted to say that this has been a really, what's the word? Anyway, I just so appreciate what you had to offer for today. I didn't know what exactly you were going to talk about with the title that we had read, of The Reality of Man as His Thought. But I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing what you did today. It was awesome.
Thank you. Barbara Vitale had a question too.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Thank you.
I can't figure out how to put the hand up, so I was gonna.
You can just raise your hand.
I did. You know, at 84, I'm not quite so savvy on all this stuff. So I just wanted to add to this in my years of experience among many of the different spiritual walks that I've been exposed to, that I have had healings where it has taken me months. And out of that, what I learned was that first I would get very down on myself because I couldn't do it instantaneously. But what I found was the process of that healing gave me so much more and such a closeness to what I call source, or to Kashala or God or Christ or whatever, Buddha, you name it, Baha'u'llah. The other thing I've experienced is having a cancerous growth on my neck, and through a grandfather on Pine Ridge, having it disappear in 15 minutes. I have had this interesting man by the name of Peter Ketch's work on me once.
That's my other father, for those of you who don't know.
That was an instantaneous healings. So what I have come to realize is, one, that I don't often ask for help in healing, because many people, the minute you say, will you give me prayers for healing, they focus on what needs to be fixed. And when you focus on what needs to be fixed, you only give the power to it to make it worse. So what I do is reach out to people that I trust and understand that to send me that is for my highest, greatest good, to help me see the answers for the experience, and to guide me in my thoughts to the highest source I can connect to. So I guess the one thing I would pass on in my years is not to get down on yourself, but simply to flow with it, that there is no one way, for this to happen. And sometimes when someone says something to you that is just a smack, in my case, someone told me the other day I was preparing to die. And I just went, oh, no, wait, this is not my plan. We're going to take a look at what I am doing to track this statement. And the growth I've had in the last few days has been monumental, way beyond what I could even imagine. So, I'm warning you all, when it's my time, I'm just going to start to shimmer and disappear.
Thank you, Barbara. Richard had another question, so I'm gonna go to him next. Right before I open it up to Richard, I just wanted to say that, if everybody can mute themselves, there's some background noise coming in. I think it's Hermione. I think it's your background, I think. I don't know.
That could be. Just to let you all know, we have about 3 minutes left, and then we will be closing out.
Okay, then I will let Richard go, and then I will close it out with one last thought. And if you want the videos, please I will put my email in the chat, like I offered to do earlier. Sorry. Go ahead, Richard.
Oh, hi, thank you. Barbara Vitale, do you have a pencil or a pen? Because you may not remember me, but I remember you, and I'd love to talk with you after this.
I'll put you in touch, Richard.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
So I just want to say to those of you who are on this journey, and you guys, this is a spiritual family that I've been apart from for too long. But look, the game's rigged right now. And I don't want to sound like some kind of conspiracy theorist, but there's a lot of forces in the world right now, including the Western capitalism, which Pope Francis said it best. It's completely failed the world in the time of COVID. And don't be discouraged, because I've been like Faith, I was discouraged for so many years, and all I had to do was make a call to the one person that I intuitively knew could help me, and that person did. So just keep the fight, keep up the good fight, and know that it's really difficult to do what she's taught, what we've been talking about today. It's very difficult to do in today's world with television and attention deficit and everybody scattered to the winds, and families are broken apart because we're the mobile workforce. So I just want to give everyone heart that we're in the fight and we're in it together, and just be sure to reach out to the person that intuitively you can ask for help. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Richard. It's beautiful. Every single one of us is capable of, when a thought comes, changing that thought. And we have to employ that opportunity at every given moment. So please reach for that more elevated positive emotion. And the more you keep that elevated positive vibration, the more you will attract that to you. And I'm going to close with this quote from Abdu'l-Baha on meditation. Meditation is the key for opening the doors of mysteries. In that state, man abstracts himself. In that state, man withdraws himself from all outside objects. In that subjective mood, he is immersed in the ocean of spiritual life and can unfold the secrets of things in themselves. This faculty brings forth from the invisible plane the sciences and the arts. Through the meditative faculty, inventions are made possible, colossal undertakings are carried out. Through it, governments can run smoothly. Through this faculty, man enters into the very kingdom of God. Thank you, everyone. I hope that my own personal journey, I hope it opens something for you, that my challenges might enlighten your world, so you don't have to go through the darkness that I had to go through to get here.
Thank you so much, Faith. This was a really outstanding presentation that I'm sure many of us, or most of us, or even all of us have something that we can take from it, regardless of what that might be. Really appreciate it, and you may be asked to return to share more with us about this.
I'd be honored.
Subject. Thank you so much. Friends, at this time, we'd like to welcome all of our guests to the Baha'i Unity Center. This is what we're calling it, Sunday morning devotional program. If this is your first, second, third, or next in a series of visits, please feel free to share who you are, where you're from, and how you happen to be with us today. This includes Baha'is visiting from out of town and sojourners recently returned to the area. We'd love to hear from you. No visitors, no guests.
There are a ton of visitors. Do I need to call people out?
You might need to.
Okay, Cindy, you go ahead and go first. There's a ton.
Hi, I don't know why my name's not showing up on the screen. I'm glad that you know it was me, but thank you so much, Faith. It's so exciting to see the confirmation from the Baha'i writings about what we now know scientifically, and we have the scientific data in front of us. So that's for me the most exciting part, because I've been following these the epigenetics, and Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe and Greg Braden and all the others for a number of years now. And it's just so wonderful that you found all these wonderful quotes to confirm it. So thanks again for that.
Welcome. Thank you.
You. Anyone else? A guest?
Donna Haver. Okay, how about
I'm trying to unmute myself. I'm sorry. This was absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad that you sent me the link, and I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida, and I just love all of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wanda and Tiana?
You have to unmute. There you go.
Hi. Yeah, I was just talking to Tiana and telling her that a lot of this I learned in that book, Think and Grow Rich. It's the same idea. First, you have to have the thought or the confirmation, and then you have to, believe it and work on it. It's the same concept. And when I was doing it a lot, it was working in my life. And then I got lazy and quit doing it. But hearing this makes me realize that, I've got to start doing it again. Because the intentions, may have taken years, but they finally came to fruition, visualizing where I wanted to be and what kind of place I wanted, and, finding it so quickly. After years of thinking about it, but when I started looking for a house, I found exactly what I wanted. So it does work. So I guess now what I have to do is get my next thought in my head of what I want next, because it might take a couple of years for it to happen. But and the healing thing too. I have tried healing a couple of things. I know that it works, but, and I'll get things to feel better, but I've never got it to actually get to the complete healing thing. So it was interesting. I think I'm with Barbara on taking the lazy way out and going to somebody and having them fix me. I think that's why I never get to the point where I actually heal, because I start getting lazy and quit doing it.
So Wanda, we're introducing ourselves. So can you introduce yourself and where you're calling?
I'm Wanda. I'm Cindy's sister and Faith's aunt. And here's Tiana, my daughter.
And you guys are calling from?
We're in Stewart, Florida. I'm visiting. I got in yesterday from Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio.
Awesome. Welcome. Debbie Ferruzzi.
Hi, Faith. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. This is great. Thank you. So I'm Debbie, and I'm in the Chicago area. I've been into metaphysics for a long time. I'm a fairly recent Baha'i, and I've been really looking for the bridge between metaphysics and the Baha'i. So this was it for me. I thought it was fantastic, and so good to see that there are people that are, making that connection between the two. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other guests before we move on? It is 12:42 and we're a little.
We have Barbara Vitale, Richard, and Cindy are there that I know of that are guests.
Can you please speak? Any one of you? Unmute.
I'm Cindy Catches.
Sure, oh, go ahead.
I'm Cindy Catches, and I'm from Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Wonderful to be here today.
Welcome. Thank you for coming today.
And I'm Barbara Vitale, and I'm from Franklin, North Carolina. And some of the people on here are my dearest, dearest friends.
Welcome. We appreciate you coming today. And Richard, were you going to say something?
Hey there. I'm Richard. I'm an architect. I live in California since 1998. And I'm currently in Northern California raising a 2-year-old daughter who we've been blessed with. and 10 chickens and our dog Stella, and my wonderful partner Laura and her family, who are cherry and grape farmers.
Wonderful. I think your screen froze there. Oh, all right. Anyone else before we close out? Elizabeth, unmute. Unmute.
I got it. I just wanted to say that I don't think of myself as a visitor, of course, because I attended the Baha'i Unity Center for years, about 18 years ago. But I'm noticing that, nobody here is a visitor because we really are all one. And there's a scientific, not a theory, but a fact that the entire universe is connected, all of us, and we affect each other. But this is what is so wonderful here today, is all of you from different parts of the United States, and we get together on Sunday, and it is wonderful. Oh my gosh. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Elizabeth. I'm guessing that is it. Okay. We have a couple of quick announcements right quick. Our upcoming speakers, I think it's Dr. Bijan Motlaq, Equality of Rights Between Men and Women. That would be next Sunday. And the Sunday after that, Dr. Carrie Murphy will be back. She'll be doing part 2 of her brilliant presentation, The Scientific Revelation Part 2, Rationality. So please be sure to stop in for those outstanding presentations. The details about them will be coming up soon. And please remember that the food distribution program is every Thursday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Baha'i Unity Center in the parking lot. So kindly spread the word to help combat food insecurity within the community. And for members of the Baha'i faith, you're warmly encouraged to make a financial contribution, perhaps in memory of Taraz Manavi, to the South DeKalb Baha'i Fund, the Sandy Springs Baha'i Fund, and the National Baha'i Fund through the online contribution system, OCS. Or you can mail a check to the Baha'i Unity Center, 2370 Wesley Chapel Road, Decatur, Georgia, 335. We'd like to say many thanks to all who worked together today to make the program possible. Our beloved speaker, ordinarily our volunteer readers, but the readers who shared with the memorial service today, Barbara Hennix, who keeps us moving forward, and the Spiritual Assemblies of the Baha'is of South DeKalb County, Georgia, and Sandy Springs, Georgia. And thanks to all of you for sharing your day with us. I'm Hermione Pickens. It's been a pleasure. Until next time, stay safe and well. We will end now with a closing prayer for Barbara. Is it prayer for the departed today or humanity today?
Humanity.
Okay. Okay, so we'll share this one. O thou kind Lord, O thou who art generous and merciful, we are servants of thy threshold and are gathered beneath the sheltering shadow of thy divine unity. The sun of thy mercy is shining upon all, and the clouds of thy bounty shower upon all. Thy gifts encompass all. Thy loving providence sustains all. Thy protection overshadows all, and the glances of thy favor are cast upon all. O Lord, grant thine infinite bestowals, and let the light of thy guidance shine. Illumine the eyes, gladden the hearts, and with abiding joy. Confer a new spirit upon all people, and bestow upon them eternal life. Unlock the gates of true understanding, and let the light of faith shine resplendent. Gather all people beneath the shadow of thy bounty, and cause them to unite in harmony, so that they may become as the rays of one sun, as the waves of one ocean, and as the fruit of one tree. May they drink from the same fountain. May they be refreshed by the same breeze. May they receive illumination from the same source of light. Thou art the giver, the merciful, the omnipotent. Ato Baha. Thank you all so much for coming.